What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Line Change Podcast. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Captain Quinn Hughes, as we are 1 year away from him being eligible to sign an extension, much like Connor Garland did, much like Thatcher Demko did. And we're going to talk about what a reasonable Quinn Hughes extension could potentially look like for the Vancouver Canucks. Obviously, with the signings of Demko, Garland, and Besser, as I mentioned, obviously gives a lot of fans, hope for a Quinn Hughes extension. Obviously, those four are very tight. They're very good friends. And we all saw that Connor Garland was on Besser about re-signing with the Canucks. Perhaps the likes of Besser, Demko, and Garland can all be that little birdie in Quinn Hughes' ear and do the same thing. But we shall see. Obviously, I am very optimistic on that front when it comes to a Quinn Hughes extension. Obviously, I want him to stay. Every Canucks fan wants Quinn Hughes to stay. But it all depends on how the team performs. And yeah, so we're going to dive into an article that discusses this and talks about a reasonable extension and what it could look like. But before we do that, I'm going to give a quick thank you and shout out to my sponsor, Gassy Jack Art, maker of that incredible artwork you see over my shoulder there. And you guys can check out Gassy Jack Art yourselves at GassyJackArt.com. You can also find him on Instagram at Gassy Jack Art. He still has his end of season sale where you can buy 2 prints and get 2 more for free. So go ahead, check him out, GassyJackArt.com. But let's go ahead and just dive right into this article written by Stefan Roget from our friends at Canucks Army. July 1st, 2025 was an important day for the Vancouver Canucks and in a few different ways. Eschewing the typical pattern of the free agent frenzy, GM Patrick Allvin and company focused on retaining assets, not adding them. The Canucks signed Brock Besser to a new 7-year deal, mere minutes after he'd hit the open market, and also extended Thatcher Demko and Connor Garland a full year ahead of their expiry of their own contracts. The series of signings added stability to a Vancouver roster that was looking increasingly uncertain. Could also be seen as the first major step in a multi-step process that the Canucks are hoping will culminate with the extension of Captain Quinn Hughes. Hughes' current contract is set to expire after the 2026-2027 season. Technically speaking, that gives the Canucks a full 2 more years of guaranteed Hughes action, but Hughes will become eligible to sign an extension on that contract in 1 year's time, July 1st, 2026. And the moment that date comes to pass without Hughes having signed an extension, it becomes a massively distracting headline, and he becomes a veritable lame duck captain. In other words, the Canucks have a year or so to convince Hughes to stick around. Who knows at this point how possible that is or what the next season might entail, but something we have a better idea of after July 1st, 2025 is what an eventual Hughes contract extension might look like. Now that the dust has settled on a brand new round of league-wide contracts, we won't bother guessing much at term because Hughes would have his choice in that matter. If he wants an 8-year extension, he'll get one. If he wants to sign a 4-year Austin Matthews-style deal to set himself up for another big payday at age 30, he can do that. And if he wants to extend for only 3 years so that he hits UFA status at the exact same time as his brother Jack, well, who's really going to stop him? Hughes and his camp could aim at any of those terms and still hit them without it having an impact on their salary demands. Hughes is that unique of a player that he sets his own market value, but on that front, what is the kind of salary that Hughes might demand? Should, for example, Hughes become the highest paid defenseman in the game of hockey? One might say no, and that Cale Makar deserves that honor with his 2 Norris trophies and a Stanley Cup under his belt. But Makar signed his current 6-year, $9 million AAV contract back in 2021, so it's no longer a fresh precedent. Makar is up for expiry at the exact same time as Hughes. If Hughes signs his extension, or rather if Makar signs his extension first, then he becomes the one and only comparable to Hughes, and a fair salary can be negotiated from there. If not, we'll have to look elsewhere for lesser comparables and work our way up. There's an argument to be made that Hughes and Makar are in a class of their own. Others who might belong in the conversation include Zach Werenski, currently entering year 4 of a 6-year, $9.58 million AAV deal, or Rasmus Dahlin entering year 2 of an $11 million AAV deal, but both should be ranked and probably paid at least a clear step behind Hughes. As of this writing, there are 11 NHL defenders set to earn a higher AAV than Makar in 2025-2026. They are Eric Carlson at $11.5 million, Drew Doughty at $11 million, Dahlin at $11 million, Evan Bouchard at $10.5 million, Werenski at $9.58 million, Seth Jones at $9.5 million, Charlie McAvoy at $9.5 million, Adam Fox at $9.5, Noah Dobson at $9.5, and Darnell Nurse at $9.25. Based on whatever quality you want, offensive production, importance to the team, award nominations, leadership, and it's hard not to argue that Hughes belongs at the very top of this group. So that is where his salary belongs then, at least $11.5 million, and probably higher than that. Well, the short answer is yes, but the longer answer leans heavily towards the probably higher than that, because Hughes can and probably should be asking for a fair amount more. As good as all these aforementioned defenders are, minus Makar, and maybe one or two others, they still don't really belong in Hughes' class of overall impact. He's not just a yearly Norris candidate, but he's someone who should reasonably be on the Hart Trophy shortlist on an annual basis too. If that award was actually voted on for the basis of quote-unquote most valuable, that means we probably have to start examining the uppermost tiers of NHL salaries to find our real answer. If we take Carlson and his $11.5 million as the league's highest paid defender and set that as our new low bar, we'll find another 8 players entering the 2025-26 season with a higher AAV. Those players are Leon Draisaitl at $14 million, Austin Matthews at $13.25, Nathan MacKinnon at $12.6, Connor McDavid at $12.5, Mitch Marner at $12, Mikko Rantanen at $12, Artemi Panarin at $11.64, and Elias Pettersson at $11.6. This is probably easiest to understand in the context of the Canucks' own roster. Does Hughes deserve a higher salary than Pettersson? Absolutely, 100%, no doubt about it. So he begins to move up this chart as well. Does Hughes deserve a higher salary than McDavid? The answer there is probably not, but McDavid is about to finish off the 8th and final year of his own current contract. That $12.5 million figure is going to be greatly increased upon for McDavid's next deal, and whatever it ends up at could reasonably be seen as a negotiating cap on Hughes and everyone else's next contract. What about the rest of the list? Does Hughes, for example, deserve more than someone like Marner, Rantanen, or Panarin? Each excellent players in their own right, but with none of them truly being quote-unquote the guy on their own rosters. It seems pretty easy to make an argument for him to eclipse them. What about that MacKinnon, Matthews, and Draisaitl group? Here we might have finally found Hughes' true peers. Each of them is and has been in the conversation for MVP awards. Each is both the best player and an established leader on their own team, and each is still very much in the prime of their career. Let's focus on Draisaitl, who has both the highest and most recent salary among the group. There are some arguments to be made that Draisaitl deserves the higher salary of the two. Right or wrong, forwards tend to be paid more than defenders, and raw point totals are still the best predictor of salary. Draisaitl just closed out his 4th 100-plus point season. He's got 1 Hart to Hughes' 1 Norris, along with an Art Ross, a Ted Lindsay, and the most recent Rocket Richard trophy. Then again, Draisaitl signed his deal a year ago in September of 2024, at which point his $14 million represented 14.5 0.66% of the cap ceiling. When Hughes signs his next deal, it'll begin in the 2027-28 season, at which point the cap will have climbed to $113.5 million. If we cut 14.66% from that total, we end up with $16.64 million. So even if there's a valid argument for Draisaitl to make more than Hughes, the existence and prevalence of league-wide inflation should more than make up for it. There's one more factor at play here, and that's taxes. Some argue that the discrepancy between a place like BC and a comparatively tax-free haven like Florida is overstated, but nobody claims it is entirely fictional. The fact of the matter is that Hughes will be leaving take-home money on the table if he signed a contract with Vancouver than if he signed one with the Panthers or the Lightning. It's not an insurmountable barrier, but it's one more obstacle in the way of signing and definitely in the way of achieving any form of discount. That leaves us with a workable range of predictions. If Makar signs before Hughes, he becomes the instant and convenient comparable. If not, we're operating between the bounds of Draisaitl's $14 million and whatever McDavid winds up signing for on his next deal. Of course, there's always hope that Hughes will take less than what is fair in order to increase his team's ability to compete. For our part, however, we'll save such hopes and dreams just for Hughes signing an extension with the Canucks, any extension. There's little doubt he'll be worth whatever he earns or continue to be anything less than one of the most valuable players in hockey, regardless of cap hit. So that was a pretty beefy and big article. Obviously gets a lot of Canucks fans talking and thinking about what that next extension could be. Obviously from how this article is saying, it's looking like it's going to be in the 14 million range. And I completely 100% agree that it is very likely a starting point. And I do think when Hughes signs his next deal, whether that's with Vancouver or another team, fingers crossed, it's with Vancouver, he will be making more money than Elias Pettersson, and rightfully so. So let me know in the comment section down below, throw out some numbers that you think Quinn Hughes a Quinn Hughes extension could look like. What does a reasonable, quote unquote, Hughes extension look like for the Vancouver Canucks with the salary cap going up? Once again, let me know in the comment section down below. And if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a single video. You can find and interact with us on social media. You can find us on Facebook. Just search The Line Change to find our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram at The Line Change. You can find us on X at Line Change Van. You can find us on TikTok at the TLC Podcast. And feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. And we're also on Blue Sky. So you can find us on Blue Sky. I believe it's at The Line Change. So go ahead and give us a follow on Blue Sky as well. If you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow as well as rate and review us. It is, of course, greatly appreciated. But that's going to do it for me in this video. Once again, let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think is a reasonable Quinn Hughes extension. Perhaps 1 year from now, it's something we're going to be talking about. So go ahead, let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Canucks go. And I'll see you guys in the next video.